Were you aware that YouTube almost got me killed due to the unprofessional manner in which they run this platform? It's damn true, and this is the story. I get an email, what was probably about a year and a half ago now, that I'm banned from the platform due to repeated violations of their terms of service, which I had never been notified of. I appealed multiple times with absolutely no success. After several years, the channel was just starting to get somewhere. I wasn't getting a lot of subscribers, but the list was growing. Over 340, 360, I forget what it was. But obviously, that was the end of that. Not that there weren't other factors involved, but that was the moment in my life when I quit caring if I lived or died. And so begins the story of my electrocution. First, a little context. Did you know that there are pictures of machinery carved in stone from pre Egyptian times? I always found that to be kind of fascinating because so called fossil fuels weren't available in those times, at least to my knowledge. Shortly after that, I learned of what's called the Baghdad battery, and that set me to thinking. What could be done with a low voltage battery to make fuel to power machinery like I seen in those carvings? The only reasonable answer I could come up with was hydrogen. So I took the Tim the Tool Man approach. More power. This is a 12-volt transformer. What I didn't realize at the time is that this is a high amperage 12-volt transformer. 12 volts is 12 volts, right? Wrong. Try 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 amps of 12 volts. After I got it hooked up and working and blew 3 car headlights in a row, I should have realized that this thing ain't no joke. But it was full speed ahead. I was on a mission because it wasn't like I had to take time out to make content for YouTube. I remember saying to myself, one more test and I'll quit messing with that thing. That's when it all went bad. I remember watching the arc as the wire slipped from my hand and welded itself to my left palm. I remember thinking through the tingling sensation, you better let that one go in your right hand before this gets out of hand. But I couldn't do it. My brain was sending the signals, but they weren't going anywhere. That's when the skin on my right hand where I was holding the bare wire started to smoke. I was sitting on the bed with the little table you were just looking at right in front of me. Then all of a sudden, involuntarily, I was laying on the bed. I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, I'm gonna die. Because it was really starting to hurt about that time. Other than that, the only thought I remember before I passed out was who's gonna feed the dog? Because there was no doubt in my mind, death was right around the corner. I have this little trick I do when I'm laying on the bed like that. I kick my legs out and it kind of makes me stand up straight and get up off the bed. That's the last thought that went through my mind as everything went black. I don't know how long I was out for, but at some point the wire must have burned away enough skin that I wasn't in contact with it anymore. Because the next thing I knew, I was on my way across the living room after doing the maneuver I just described at what I can only describe as a jogger's pace. How I missed the wood stove, which was red hot at the time, I have no idea. One would think that an experience like that would have discouraged me from my hydrogen experiment, and it did for a time. I've been zapped before, but never like this. I was completely out of it for 3 hours. My whole body was shaking. I didn't even notice what had happened to my right hand till probably an hour had passed. I laid down to try and chill out, but it's like my body was supercharged, and I had the overwhelming urge to listen to thunder snow ambience. As I laid there listening to the thunder cracking and rolling, I felt right at home, and I guess, in a sense, I was. Good thing it's 8 hours long, because it took probably 4 hours before I finally fell asleep. I woke up the next day, and it felt like Dogman or Bigfoot had tried to rip my arms off. I don't know how much hydrogen was produced in my bloodstream in that short amount of time, but it took weeks before I felt even close to normal again. And several more beyond that before I was prepared to start with any kind of hydrogen experiments. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to try anything with one of these. Turns out you only need 2 volts to split water into hydrogen efficiently. And it can be done. I actually managed to start the car on it with very few modifications. But make it run on it? That's a whole nother story. That takes a lot of hydrogen. And in order to have a lot of hydrogen, you have to be able to pressurize it. And if you can't build in the right safety precautions as you're trying to pressurize hydrogen, getting electrocuted is the least of your concerns. You can recover from electrocution, but if you blow yourself off the face of the planet, you're not recovering from that. Electrocution notwithstanding, what have I learned? The higher that gauge goes, the more you find out how much you care whether or not you live or die. But I'm pretty sure that's the fuel that ran those machines and those pre-Egyptian carvings. But it's going to take more than mason jars and Mount Dew bottles to figure it out.